Our area's most beautiful properties deserve the finest realtors. Meeks Realty Group. We focus on buying and selling residential and commercial properties throughout the tri-state area. Contact Meeks Realty Group online at meeks.us or call 304-440-1101.
The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 580 WCHS, its employees, or WVRC Media. 580 Live is presented by Thornhill Automotive and is broadcast live from the Parmar Stores studio. The country, the United States of America. The state, West Virginia. The city, Charleston. This is 580 Live. And your host of 580 Live.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
He's kind of a big deal.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Dave Allen.
Hey, folks, good Thursday morning to you from the Parmar Stores studio. 580 Live brought to you by the Thornhill Auto Group, the voice of Charleston, WCHS. Ryan Nicholson is our producer today. Bigly, Piggly, Wiggly hotline, 304-345-5858. Fruit Pharmacy text, 304-935-5008. 580 Live presented by Thornhill Auto Group. It is Chevy truck season at Thornhill. Qualified buyers through GM Financial can get 0 APR on new 2023 Silverado 1500s and up to $7,500 off lifted trucks, too. Visit ThornhillGMSuperstore.com or on US 119 in Chapmanville for details. And we do the show from the Parmar Store studio. If there's not a Parmar store near you now, there will be soon. Stop by your favorite Parmar store. In the remaining days of the month of September, pick yourself up a world's best chocolate bar for only $1. Proceeds benefit the Children's Home Society of West Virginia. And remember, if there's not a Parmar store near you now, there will be soon. Let me get to this before we get into the show. Major traffic situation on the West Virginia Turnpike right now. And you've heard Chris and Carrie and the team talking about it throughout the morning. Turnpike is effectively shut down and because of an accident there and possibly some hazardous materials there in an area around. Well, let me tell you this. Just go to the Facebook page, go to the X, artist formerly known as Twitter, and Chris has got it all laid out there for you as to exactly where it is. But if you're going to be traveling on the Turnpike heading down to Beckley or wherever this morning, it's going to, I don't want to say it's going to be a slow go. It's going to be a no-go. So just know that before you go. And again, we've got everything laid out for you on the website and also on our social media pages as well. Again, the situation on the West Virginia Turnpike. Coming up a little bit later on in the morning, Greg Thomas is going to join us, and we're going to talk a little bit, well, we always talk politics with Greg Thomas, but there's something else that we want to get into with Greg, and that has to do with this opioid settlement that was announced, and, well, Greg and a few others are a little upset about the amount of money going to attorneys and specific attorneys that are benefiting from that. Greg Thomas is going to join us to talk about that a little bit later on. But before we do that, it is homecoming weekend in Huntington. Marshall getting ready to take on Old Dominion Saturday afternoon at the Joan. Matt James is the Executive Director of Alumni Relations at Marshall, and he joins us now. Matt, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Dave. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. You know, I almost feel guilty for having you on the show as late as Thursday because homecoming activities, Matt, have been going on all week on campus and all around Huntington. Talk about what's already gone on around the Jewel City as it relates to homecoming.
Hey, yeah, you know, we've had a great week already, and we're only halfway through, to be honest. And so Monday we kicked off our annual homecoming festivities with the 12th annual Unity Walk, and that is basically one big family reunion for all of our Herd family. We gather at the rec center. We split into two, and half of the family marches down 3rd Avenue, the other half down 5th. We converge on the plaza at the fountain, and we announced the homecoming court. So that was pretty exciting. Our student organizations have been competing all week in the annual Thunder Cup competition, which is pretty fun. They raise money throughout the week for local charities. They also compete in trivia. They had Chalk the Walk because we have, I think, a cool theme this year. It's Super Marco Level Up. So we're playing off of the recent Mario movie, but also leveling up too. You know, everything with our new president, Brad Smith. He's really taking Marshall to the next level. So we've had a lot of fun so far, and we've got a big 2 days coming up too.
So yeah, here we are on Thursday. So what's happening over the next couple of days leading up to game time?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to be our athletics family is actually going to be rolling out the outdoor basketball court again. I think it's the second time they've done this. It's called Hoops in Huntington. And so our student athletes will be downtown at 6 o'clock for some pregame festivities and signing some autographs down at Pullman Plaza here in downtown Huntington. And then at 7 o'clock, they'll do a little showcase with the basketball teams for you.
So it's going to be a lot of exciting things going on there this evening. Actually, I plan on being there this evening. So what do we got going on tomorrow and into Saturday, as I said, leading up to kickoff?
Yeah, so tomorrow is our big day. So for about the past 10 years, we've had our parade on Thursday night, and that wasn't really, conducive for many of our alumni. So that's what's exciting for the folks I get to work with every day this year, is many of them will be in town tomorrow night. So our parade will kick off at 6 o'clock. It starts downtown on 4th Avenue around the Keith Albee Theater. It's going to come all the way down 4th Avenue, take a right at campus at Old Main, and then an immediate left onto 5th Avenue, coming all the way down until you get to Harless Field. There's a bonfire that follows the parade, and, the community is invited to all of these events. We hope they'll come out. The weather's supposed to be great.
Yeah.
I should mention, too, we're bringing back the 25th and 50th class reunions. Those are at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We've got about 100 folks that have registered for those. What's exciting about that is the pandemic, kind of killed those events for a while, and we weren't able to have those. So we're really excited to bring back the classes of 1973 and 1998.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there. And here we're talking with Matt James, who's the Executive Director of Alumni Relations at Marshall University, as the herd and everyone around there gets ready for homecoming, Matt, this weekend. Now, what about Saturday? What about game day? What you got?
Yeah, so game day is our big day. Kickoff's at 3:30. We've got a great conference opponent in ODU. We're going to get a herd win. But before that, at 12:30, we have our family and alumni tailgate. And that'll be taking place in the green space between Edwards Stadium and the football practice facility. It's right behind McDonald's. It's $20 a person. It's all you can eat and all you can drink beer, and we hope folks will join us. We're going to be back there from 12:30 until kickoff at 3:30.
And again, there's a game in there somewhere. As we said, the Herds have been looking really good this season. And I will say this, Matt, as a son of Marshall, homecoming, with all due respect to all the other colleges in the state, it hits a little different at Marshall. And I don't know that there's any school that it values its alumni more than what Marshall University does. Talk about that.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. I was actually having this conversation with one of our alumni yesterday, Lucy Ann Call. She's actually the daughter of the athletic director who was on the plane in 1970. And so I think everything goes back to what happened on that day, right, in November of 1970. But it's everything that's happened since then. We haven't let that define us. And so we talked about, homecoming is that time of the year for us with our unique story that we get to pause and celebrate. November is really somber, and we pause and reflect and remember. But there is so much positive going on right now on our campus. Much of it is coming from the leadership of Brad Smith and Christian Spears in athletics. And, I'm just excited to be a part of it. But, yeah, man, it does hit differently, and I think it's because there's just something unique about our story.
I would agree with that. And, I can tell you, I've been on vacation places, and I'll have a Marshall baseball cap on or Marshall jersey or something, and somebody this actually happened to me in Myrtle Beach a couple of years ago. I was walking down the boardwalk, and I have got a Marshall baseball cap on, and someone stopped me and started talking about Marshall University. In Myrtle Beach, and Marshall also has a lot of alums all over the country. They get together, even the ones that can't come in for homecoming. They get together and they watch games, and a lot of other colleges do that too. And I certainly respect that. But it's just amazing, to me, when you bleed green and white, you really bleed green and white.
Oh, yeah, man. And our alumni base is powerful. Just over the last year since I've been in this job, so I'm like 2 weeks shy of being in this job for a year. It's flown by. We've doubled the number of alumni chapters. Again, I think it's just because our folks want to be a part of this excitement. They want to be a part of what's going on. So like you said, we're rallying around athletics. There's a lot of excitement going there. So we have game watching parties. But these folks are also raising money for scholarships for the next generation of students. President Smith, our Marshall for All, Marshall Forever plan, in 15 years, we're going to have students graduating debt-free, and that's going to take all of us, towing in the same direction. And so I just can't say enough about where we are as a school and where we're going.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'll tell you, as somebody who was a Marshall student back in the early 1990s, I was there when they built the stadium, when they built the Joan, and how much it's grown even since then. And a couple of years ago, in a former job I had got a chance to give people a tour of Huntington. And I was driving down Hal Greer to 3rd Avenue, and I was pointing that this wasn't here when I was here. This wasn't here when I was here. This wasn't here. It's totally changed. Now on the field, Marshall, of course, coming off that big win over Virginia Tech last week. Our running back, Rasheen Ali is the reigning Sun Belt Conference Offensive Player of the Week. It's going to be a great game, I think, this weekend against, as you said, a conference foe in Old Dominion. That's kind of turned into one of our newest rivals because it's really not that far away, so they're probably going to bring some people up too. Is there a convenient place, Matt, where people can go online, your website or social media or whatever, where people can kind of see all these activities that we talked about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they can find us on Facebook. All of our stuff's on Facebook. It's Alumni and Foundation. The university also has a website where everything is listed. It's marshall.edu/homecoming. If you just go to the Marshall page and type in homecoming, you'll find everything we just talked about.
Matt, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here. I know it's a very, very busy day. I didn't dare to try to get you on the show tomorrow because I know you're going to be really tied up. Only reason I got you on this morning is because it's relatively early and you're just getting things going there. Matt, I'll be down there tonight and through the weekend. I will see you later, my friend. Thanks for being here.
All right, man. I appreciate you. Go Herd.
All right, absolutely. Matt James, Executive Director of Alumni Relations at Marshall University. 580 Live is brought to you part by General Hardware and Lumber of Winfield. From kitchens to paints to decks, straight framing wood, roofing metal, and anything else you need, you're going to find it at General Hardware and Lumber of Winfield. I started the segment by talking about this accident on the Turnpike. I just got some more information here. This tractor trailer that crashed this morning was carrying several thousand pounds of hazardous material, 44,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate, which the Parkways Authority says is hazardous and, of course, is a flammable compound. Several agencies, including the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, the State Police, and others, are currently on the scene, and the road is expected to be closed until crews can clear the scene. There is no timetable available for that. Now, the crash was reported in the northbound lanes around 6:40 this morning near mile marker 62 in Fayette County. That's according to the Parkways Authority. And they are saying that the driver, thankfully, was not hurt in the incident. No more information is being released at this time. So, again, that's what we're looking at right now. And, of course, Jeff and Chris and Carrie and their crew will keep you updated throughout the day on this. But don't plan on traveling the Turnpike. That would be the best advice I have for you. This was a tractor trailer carrying around 44,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate. And the crash happened at around 6:40 this morning. And so, again, just a serious situation there. So if I were you, I just simply would not plan on traveling in that area today. And we'll keep you updated on the air, on the websites, the social medias, and all the stuff. Bigley, Piggly, Wiggly hotline, 304-345-5858. Fruit Pharmacy text, 304-935-5008. 580 Live is brought to you in part by QC Kinetics of Huntington and Cross Lanes. Now, imagine if you could live your life this fall with no more pain in your knees, your hips, your shoulders, or your back. QC Kinetics can make it happen without steroid surgery, pain pills, or downtime. Contact them. QC Kinetics of Huntington and Cross Lanes for a complimentary consultation. 304-202-5566, 304-202-5566 for QC Kinetics of Huntington and Cross Lanes. Knock out a couple of texts before we go to break and we bring Greg Thomas and Texas Dave. Hillary has already started the BS lie again about Russian interference ahead of 2024. I thought that was now illegal, according to a texter. Texter says Dumbledore has passed. Actually, I heard Chris and Carrie talking about this morning. The actor that played that particular guy. I'm going to plead totally ignorant, Ryan. I have no idea what that's. Harry Potter stuff. Is that what it is? I mean, I didn't watch it. I don't know. But thoughts and prayers. All right, we're going to take a break. Greg Thomas is up next from the Parmar Store Studio, 580 Live, brought to you by the Thornhill Outer Group and the Voice of Charleston, WCHS.
Brought to you by the Eric J. Tarr Family Businesses. Eric J. Tarr Family Businesses want to thank you for supporting local small businesses.
We are professional grade. Hey, it's Sydney inviting you to enjoy more with Thornhill GM Superstore. And GMC is leading the way. Whether it's the rugged GMC Sierra pickup or the versatile GMC Acadia, Thornhill has a perfect GMC for you. Powerful, reliable, and comfortable truck. Then don't miss this opportunity to get the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can enjoy 0.9% APR financing plus $32.50 purchase allowance with an eligible trade. And that's not all. Take advantage of no monthly payments until 2024. Click or come by ThornhillGMSuperstore.com. We are professional grade. Get more on the Thornhill Motor Mile, US 119 Chapmanville. For all offers through Financial Seek Thornhill for all details.
The future of joint pain relief is here. It's QC Kinetics, advanced regenerative medicine. This is amazing stuff. Hey, it's Dave Allen. If you've been told more steroids or surgery are your only options, don't be so fast. Get a second opinion and learn about how you can harness your body's own healing agents to attack that joint pain. I'm talking about lasting relief. QC Kinetics doesn't mask the pain. These treatments go to the very root of the problem, using concentrated healing properties placed directly in your joint to restore and repair that damaged tissue. Imagine living your life this fall with no more pain in your knees, your hips, your shoulders, or your back, with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Listen, life is about motion, and QC Kinetics is giving people their lives back with these all-natural treatments. QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. Call QC Kinetics of Huntington and Cross Lanes for your complimentary consultation. 304-202-5566. That's 304-202-5566. 304-202-5566.
923, 580 Live, brought to you part by your hometown baseball team, the Charleston Dirty Birds. Come check out the Down and Dirty Music Festival at Gomart Ballpark, October the 14th and 15th. For tickets and for more information, visit downanddirtymusicalfestival.com. Greg Thomas is here. We're going to talk to Greg here in just a couple of moments. If you'll bear with me for just a moment. You know, from time to time, I do something I call Davitorials, where I attempt to wax poetically. I'd never succeed, though, on a particular topic that I feel kind of passionately about. Yesterday, it was announced that one of my brethren in the world of talk radio, one of the best, more on that in a moment, Tom Roten of WVHU Radio in Huntington, was relieved of his duties, really through no fault of his own. More because he works for an evil company in iHeartRadio that couldn't care less about quality programming or being a part of the community. In fact, if you listen to their stations, they have a variety, like we do, of different stations in their building, different formats and whatnot. But what you may find interesting is that very few of those people are actually located in West Virginia. They've basically, again, my opinion, only mine, basically destroyed an industry that I've been a part of for 35 years. Their ultimate goal is to eliminate all local radio programming because they think that radio consumers would rather hear announcers out of Dallas or somewhere rather than in their own hometowns. Now, Tom Roten and I could not be any more different politically. I consider myself to be a more moderate Republican. Tom is and was so far right that Greg Thomas and Eric Tarr may say, man, that guy's really, really far right. But Tom was one of the brotherhood. He and I met in college at Marshall on the college radio station, WMUL. I was a news guy. He was a sports guy. And we remained friends after that. Again, Roten and I were very different politically. And even though I didn't agree with him on about 90% of what he said on the radio, he was a true homegrown radio guy. Then companies like that want to silence. Not for political reasons, as some would think, but for the bottom line. And you know, I'm the king of capitalists. People know that. You know that about me. But not at the expense of crapping all over quality local programming, which, love him or hate him, Tom Roten offered. So I just say, you know, shame on you, iHeart. Shame on you for what you've done to this industry. And shame on you for doing what you did to a guy, again, that I couldn't be any more different. He'll be fine. Tom Roten will rebound. iHeart, you suck. 580 Live is brought to you in part by Hudson's Pizza. This month, get yourself a large 18-inch pepperoni pizza and a Stromboli, only $22.99. Visit Hudson'sPizza.com for details. Greg Thomas is here. How are you, my friend?
Doing real well. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. You know, you and I get to talk political stuff. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But I want to talk about this opioid settlement and some of your criticism and Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse, a group that you're a part of, and their criticism toward the millions of dollars in attorney's fees in that settlement. Now, I'd like for you, Greg, if you would, to take the story from the top, how this whole thing came about. Then we're going to kind of break it down and tie some other people into it. But take the story from the top.
So this lawsuit, this isn't a typical lawsuit like you would call down to, you know, somebody on the yellow pages and call up and say, hey, I was in a car wreck. I need you to sue somebody. This is what's called a public nuisance lawsuit. And what these are filed on behalf of governments. And in this particular lawsuit was, you know, a catch-all of everybody in the opioid industry that had done anything to kind of promote the opioid, you know, devastation that hit our state. So the state of West Virginia filed suit, and that's, you know, through the Attorney General's office. A lot of different cities and counties filed suit. And Patrick Morsi he's filed a lot of these claims like this. This isn't the first public nuisance lawsuit he's filed. He's this is a tactic that he uses quite a bit. There was actually this same claim was filed in federal court, but was dismissed. If you remember, I think that was like last summer, and it was dismissed. Yeah. So, but the way it worked on the state level, it was filed in state court, and the state Supreme Court sent it to what's called a mass litigation panel. So they essentially signed 3 judges to a panel to say, hey, here's this really, really big case that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of attention, and we want to make sure we have seasoned judges that'll be on this. And there were 3 judges on it initially. There was Judge Alan Moats, Judge Derek Swope, who's from down in Mercer, and there was actually Judge Hutchison, who's now on the state Supreme Court. Yep. So he was initially on it, but once he was appointed to the state Supreme Court, they removed him from this panel, and they just left the 2 judges. So at that point, Judge Moats was the lead, was sort of the head judge on it. And he appointed Morrissey to sort of be the lead attorney, right? It was like, okay, look, you represent the state, so right, you're the biggest, you have the biggest client.
When you're the attorney general, you're basically the top lawyer in the state.
Yeah, and so you're, the claims that you're making of damages, so to speak, or hey, here's all the bad stuff that you've done to the state, and this is why we need, compensation for what's been done through us through this opioids. And so he had 2 roles in that. One role was to negotiate the settlement, right? Like, had the case once they said, hey, we're going to settle this. You negotiate the settlement with all the defendants. But the second part of it was to work out the attorney's fees. And so that's, we're not here to, we don't get involved in cases like while they're going on.
It's the Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse.
Yeah, in our organization, we don't go in and say, hey, you should have filed it. Maybe after the whole thing's over, we may go in and say, hey, gosh, that was whatever. But that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is saying, okay, this was a nearly $1 billion settlement.
$940 million, I think, was the actual.
And so, there was this was a 5-week trial, and at the end of it, we ended up with this settlement. And so the way it works with the Attorney General's office, like he essentially sends out like an RFP, right? It's like, okay, we're going to hire. He doesn't do it internally. These are pretty complex cases. Right, they don't do it internally, so they say, hey, who can do this? And so 4 different law firms submitted RFPs. He picked 2. Those 2 firms were Rusty Webb here in Charleston, and then a firm named Motley Rice, which is a big national firm out of South Carolina that does this kind of stuff all over the country. Sure, yeah. There's actually a big national lawsuit with the same issues that we're also part of, and Motley Rice is the lead attorney on the national lawsuit, which would essentially be the same kind of things, right? It's the same elements, the same legal theories that they have, and that's actually going on at a federal court up in Cleveland. So what's happened, though, kind of to update everybody, so all that goes on. So last Friday, Judge Wilkes, who was a judge that used to serve in the Eastern Panhandle, must be like senior status or something now, came in and essentially reviewed all of the information about the attorney's fees. And approved it, right? So that there was a settlement, and this is actually something we're trying to get a little clarification on, is exactly like, what information is sent to Wilkes for him to say, okay, yeah, I approve this or don't approve it. But Wilkes essentially approved it on Friday and sent out a thing saying, $141 million are going to attorneys for their work on these cases. $141 million.
Yeah.
So
repeat that.
$141 million. Right. Which is literally like about what, we keep talking about flatline budgets in the state, and like that's how much money the state didn't spend every year to over the last 5 or 6 years to give us the biggest tax cut in state history. So we're talking about a lot of money. 2 of the firms, the Rusty Webb firm and Motley Rice, received nearly $50 million each. And so That came out on Friday. We put out a statement on Monday, essentially saying like, "Hey, we think this is outrageous. This is an excessive amount of money." We were very critical of former, and not all your listeners will remember, but many will. But former Darryl McGraw. This is what he did, right? So like our organization was very critical of McGraw when he did this stuff. It was a big campaign issue with McGraw when Morrissey was elected, right? So this was something that was like, hey, elect our guy and we won't do this kind of stuff. Well, that didn't end up turning out to be the case, as often is with career politicians. So, we come out with a statement saying, hey, this is crazy. And Morrissey responds with, as he often does, with personal attacks and things like that, because that's sort of his style. But the other thing he did was he sort of threw the other attorneys under the bus, right? So like he hired 2 attorneys, but all those cities and counties that we talked about, they hired their own attorneys, so they get money too. So then, so Morrissey goes on Hoppy yesterday and kind of he's essentially, I think his position at this point is he's defending his lawyers, but saying the other lawyers, they may not deserve all the money they got. My lawyers do, but I don't know about the others.
Let me jump in here. Let me read the statement. Okay, from this was a statement that his office put out, and as you said, Greg, and again we're talking with Greg Thomas. Morrissey was on Hoppy yesterday, but this was a statement. He said it's absurd and flat out asinine for an uninformed and conflicted individual. I'm presuming that would be you, Sir Gregory.
So I guess so.
To give his take on something he knows nothing or very little about. Learn the facts before making assumptions.
It sounds like I know a lot of the facts. And the things that I don't know, we're asking questions on and getting information on. But that's what bullies do, right? I mean, that's the kind of style.
You're calling Patrick Morrissey a bully?
Absolutely. That's what bullies do, and that's his style. He's trying to $100 million to 2 lawyers is indefensible. It just is. It's not a defense. I mean, that is it shocks the conscience. It's such an outrageous thing to say. And for him to go out and continue to do this. So anyway, so that's what he'd been doing. But all of a sudden now the pressure is building up, right? And he's having to go on Hoppy, and everybody's talking to him, and there's stories on Metro News and the Record, and I'm getting all kinds of comments and people I hadn't heard from in 5 years.
I was going to say, I saw you on TV last night. I was like, my wife said, Greg's on TV.
Well, and so a good segue to this part. So Mark Curtis calls me and says, hey, do you want to talk about this? And
Mark Curtis is the political reporter for WWK.
For WWK. So I go on, I do it, and so he had interviewed Morrissey right before me. So as he's interviewing me, and he's like, what do you have to say about it? And I'm like, look, $141 million is outrageous. The $50 million to an out-of-state big-time Democrat law firm is outrageous. And so he says to me, what do you think we should do about it? And I'm like, well, I don't know if there's anything we can do about it right now. At a minimum, we need to, revisit this process, figure out how it's done, make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, right? And the point of this, everybody, is for the $141 million, like, we're not saying it goes back to the defendants. It should go to the public. This was a public nuisance lawsuit. There are a lot of people impacted by this, and that's where the money deserves to go. So essentially, Patrick Morrissey is saying, I think the money deserves to go to lawyers and not the people. That's what he's saying. There's no other. You can be uninformed if you want to be uninformed, but that's the way that this goes. And so Mark Curtis says to me, he goes, he says to me, Patrick Morrissey the Attorney General told me that he wants these fees cut in half. And I step back and my eyes get wide, and I'm like, well, that's interesting because he's the one that negotiated the attorney's fees with the court. And so the story, so Mark's, so the WWK story comes out last night, and Morrissey said in the story that he wants the fees cut. They did not say by the 50%, as Mark had told me kind of personally when we were doing the interview, that he wanted them cut in half, but he did say he wanted them cut. And I've had a bunch of people call me last night and this morning and say, how would we even do that now? And what I have found out, not being, if I'm uninformed about something, I can go and become informed on it. And I found out that there will be a hearing on October 13th at 2:00 in courtroom 4. That's the ceremonial courtroom on the second floor of the Kanawha County Courthouse. and it's a notice of hearing regarding the distribution of settlement proceeds from the West Virginia First Qualified Settlement Fund. So essentially, there's this settlement of what kind of fees they're supposed to have. It's been kind of pre-approved by Judge Wilkes, and now it has to get the final approval by Moats and Swope here. And so, we've got a little time. So for those people out there that think that not all of this $141 million should go to personal injury lawyers and big time Democrat out of state firms like Motley Rice. I'd call the Attorney General's office. I'd call your local legislator. I mean, I think there is a little bit of time to get some information in here. And if Morrissey truly believes what he said about, hey, I think the settlement funds need to be cut, maybe there's something he can do. Maybe he is helpless here. Maybe he is, but maybe he isn't, right? And so I think there's an opportunity for our leaders to get involved and try to make sure we secure as many funds as possible to help those that have been affected by this opioid crisis.
Talk about the law firm of Motley Rice, not to be confused with Motley Crue, which that would make an awesome law firm, by the way. But talk about this law firm and little digging that you did on them and some of their ties.
Well, it doesn't take much digging. You can Google Motley Rice political affiliation or Democrats or whatever. Motley Rice is one of the biggest law firms in the country.
Well, they're based in South Carolina.
Based in outside of Charleston, South Carolina. They handle big time lawsuits like this, right? They come in and they were very involved in the tobacco legislation from 20 years ago or whenever it was. They are the lead counsel on this the federal opioid legislation right now. But they're also the largest. Their law firm donates more to Democrats and liberal interests than any other law firm in the country. So this is a very, very liberal, big-time Democrat law firm that Patrick Morrissey is hired to do work on behalf of the state of West Virginia. But
now how does that process work, Greg? Because I am totally ignorant on this. How does that process work that he chose this law firm? Because I say this because Mr. Morrissey, when he's been on this show and other places, has said he's the only true conservative running for governor. So if he is the only true conservative running for governor, why would he? I mean, how would he go about employing this particular law firm out of South Carolina that's known for this?
That'd be a good question for him and voters, I guess. I mean, the way it works, and I talked about this earlier. Morrissey essentially puts out an RFP that says, "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this lawsuit." They would come in though and say, hey, we're the national expert on this. That's why you need to hire us, right?
But would he have the right to, again, explain this? I apologize for my ignorance here, but so would he have the right, if he did his research, to say, no, we don't want to utilize you guys?
No, he wouldn't have to utilize them. He could have hired somebody else. I mean, I think I'll let him, say why he hired him. But look, this is a national law firm that knows how to do this stuff. I've talked to a lot of I've actually talked to a lot of attorneys on both sides of this. This is something that we certainly followed while it was going on, but it's something that we have obtained a lot of information on in the last week. And I've had people on both sides of it kind of reach out and give me some background on what's going on with it. I'm not trying to say here that there aren't attorneys that did a lot of work, right? I mean, there's even Tony Magistro, who's somebody I'm politically opposed to, 9 times out of 10. And as I've called around about it, people are like, "Hey, man, Tony did a lot of work on this, right?" Like, and
he was on Hoppy yesterday.
Yeah, as well. and look, so we're not throwing everybody. Now Magistro would be one of the ones that Morrissey was thrown under the bus during his Hoppy interview. So I'm not trying to say they didn't do a good job. I'm not trying to say they didn't do a lot of work. I just don't think they did $141 million worth of work, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what it is. So that's all we're saying. I think we need to review this process. If there's anything we can do now before October 13th at 2 p.m., if there's anything we can do to change this, we need to try to do that. And if we fail, and if we come up short, and the $141 million goes to personal injury lawyers instead of to people affected by the opioids, in cities and counties in the state, as they try to fund to overcome this crisis. Then what can the legislature needs to step in and figure out what do we do to make sure something like that doesn't happen again, right? And so, so that's just we appreciate the opportunity to bring attention to it. We know, obviously it's on the TV, it's on radio, it's on the news. I mean, it's out there. And I would think it's going to continue to be out there until October 13th at 2 p.m. because that'll be when it finally goes down. And I mean, I've heard people involved with this West Virginia First, organization that are like, hey, thanks for kind of doing this. You know what I mean? It's, it's not something that's, there could be political aspects to this. Nobody else has sort of chimed in on that. And I think there'll be a time and place for that. I think right now it just needs to be how can we make sure as much money as possible goes to those affected. That's what we need to focus on at this point.
18 minutes away from 10, 580 Live brought to you part by Integrity Insurance. Stop by, see Chris Walters today, 16 Capitol Street in Charleston for homeowners, business, life, or auto insurance. From all the top names like Progressive, Allstate, Nationwide, Travelers, Liberty, and more, visit www.iigwv.com or call 304-346-9181 for Chris Walters at Integrity Insurance, 16 Capitol Street in Charleston. As he normally does when he's on the show, he elicits a lot of texts. So we're going to get to some text after this. Plus, I want to talk about some other things with Greg Thomas. We're back after this from the Par-Mar Store Studio, 580 Live, brought to you by the Thornhill Auto Group and the Voice of Charleston, WCHS.
Are you looking for a technical job in the medical field? Generations is growing and looking to add on job-trained physical therapy techs to our rehab team. To apply, visit one of our 7 convenient locations or simply click on us at generationspt.com.
Thrive with 5 at the best community bank in the Kanawha Valley, Poca Valley Bank. Poca Valley Bank is now offering a certificate of deposit special, 10-month APY, annual percentage yield 5%. Take advantage of this great rate to grow your savings. For more information, stop by a Poca Valley Bank location today or call 844-782-2651. Poca Valley Bank, where relationships matter. Certain terms and conditions apply. Rates based on minimum annual percentage yield. Subject to change without notice. Minimum deposit required of $10,000 of new money not currently on deposit with Poca Valley Bank to receive APY. Member FDIC.
We are professional grade. Hey, it's Sydney inviting you to enjoy more with Thornhill GM Superstore, and GMC is leading the way. Whether it's the rugged GMC Sierra pickup or the versatile GMC Acadia, Thornhill has a perfect GMC for you. Powerful, reliable, and comfortable truck? Then don't miss this opportunity to get the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can enjoy 0.9% APR financing plus $32.50 purchase allowance with an eligible trade. And that's not all. Take advantage of no monthly payments until 2024. Click or come by ThornhillGMSuperstore.com. We are professional grade. Get more on the Thornhill Motor Mile, US 119 Chapmanville. For all offers through Financial Seek Thornhill for all details.
Elevators. You take them for granted until they let you down. If you're working to maintain a stellar reputation, then let me introduce you to DC Elevator. We want to work with you to make sure your people get where they are going. What could be better than a new company coming to the area and already having 45 years of experience? DC Elevator is bringing a new culture of elevator maintenance, repairs, modernization, and installation to West Virginia. Don't leave your people hanging. For a free consultation, call DC Elevator at 304-345-7222.
Reds fans, don't miss a moment at the ballpark. Now is the time to get your 2024 season tickets. With your 2024 season ticket membership, you'll sit in the same seat for every game, get the biggest savings, and receive exclusive benefits. Plans start at 13 games and include guaranteed access to opening day next year. To secure your seats to watch the Reds in 2024, call 513-765-7500 today.
15 minutes away from 10, 580 Live, brought to you by Meeks Realty Group. If you're looking for a beautiful home, they have just what you're looking for. Listen to this: 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, 8,600 square feet on 2 acres of beautiful land with pool and bathhouse, outdoor kitchen, exercise room, custom-built bar, steam room, koi pond, and more. It's in Tays Valley at Woodvale Heights. For more information, visit the website meeks.us or call 304-401-1101. Greg Thomas is here. Text says, this is how Greg Thomas campaigns for people. He's getting paid to attack Patrick Morrissey. No surprise here.
Not getting paid by anybody in the governor's race. And
that's a follow-up text. Another text says, ask Greg which gubernatorial candidate he's working for.
Not working for any of them. Not working for any of them. I'm personally friends with Chris and Moore and Mac. I like them all. I think they're all deserving of the opportunity to serve as governor.
Text says, shameful that what these attorneys have done. This is the people's money.
I wouldn't go as far to say shameful. Like, they're doing their job. They're doing a lot of work. I mean, it's not. It really is the system and the way this goes. It's just, do we have to continue to do that, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and I think the part that people are missing here is that it is a public nuisance lawsuit. Like, this isn't, hey, there's a bad company that spilled something into the water, or here's somebody that sold a product that's defective and you got hurt by it. That's not what they're doing. They're saying that, look, just what you did caused all this public turmoil and all this stress and all these things, caused the police and the fire and the hospitals to spend all this money and do all these things to kind of fix the problems you created. So you owe us some money, right? Like, but that's the thing. It's a public nuisance lawsuit. It's not like hey, I'm trying to get money, and if I get money for you, I get paid to do it. You're filing the litigation on behalf of the public. It is, and that caller is right. It is the public's money.
Text says, go to the campaign finance reports and see who's paying the win agency, Greg's company. Then you can see who's paying Greg to trash candidates on the radio.
I guess so, man. I mean, I think, I've worked for, I've been a consultant for the American Tort Reform Association since 2002, maybe 2003. Mm-hmm. I've, run Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse. Actually, I think I ran Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse before I started doing the work for ATRA. But I've been, this has, I mean, and this is, I'm sure this is like Morrissey or Morrissey's campaign guy texting that to you, but like,
I have no idea who it is.
Well, it wouldn't be any of his friends because he doesn't have any, but like, it would be
promo, Ryan, promo.
It would be, this would be, I'm not working for a candidate. If I were working for a candidate, I would say I'm working for a candidate, and here's what I'm on behalf of. But I'm not doing that. Like, this has been lawsuit abuse is something I've done for 20 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, we did the report on McGraw when he did all this stuff before Morrissey got elected. I mean, this is everybody. I mean, I've said this on your show before. I recruited Patrick Morrissey to run for attorney general because we didn't like Darryl McGraw because of stuff like this.
And now you're tying Patrick Morrissey with Darryl McGraw.
It's look, you can't. It happens to politicians when they're in office, and they see opportunities to do stuff, and it's a tough cycle to break. You know what I mean? Look, Patrick Morrissey isn't the first person that did this, mm-hmm. right? I'm not blaming Patrick Morrissey for the opioid crisis. I'm not blaming Patrick Morrissey for, the way this all is structured. I mean, he was on the radio yesterday essentially saying like, hey, if it wasn't me, they'd have gotten paid 30%. Well, maybe so, right? Maybe under McGraw, they would have gotten 30%. But the state, voters said, we don't want that, right? We don't want that. We want something else. And so that's why we're going to continue to speak out. And the goal, we have a goal here, and we actually have a deadline. And the deadline, as I said earlier, is October 13th at 2:00 at the ceremonial courthouse. And if anybody out here that says we need more of that money to go to people that deserve it and not to out-of-state personal injury law firms that are the biggest Democrat law firms in the country, you should do something about it. You should call somebody.
Who will that go in front of? Who will hear
that? That'll be Swopes and Moak. That'll be those two. That'll be the two judges on that mass litigation panel. That'll be who oversees that.
Text says, fact says no one was held accountable. No one went to jail. If it was a drug dealer that would take all your cash and property, the two-tiered system, there's one for the rich and one for the poor.
Look, and that's what I'm saying earlier. Like, our organization, we don't get involved into the legal theory of all these cases. What we do is we look at it when it's all said and done and say, hey, is this something that, what is the public effect of this, right? Like, we can't get in the middle of every case, and when we don't get in the middle of cases, but it's just, we are singularly focused, and this has nothing to do with politics. We are singularly focused on making sure that as much money can go to the public as possible and not to these out-of-state personal injury law firms.
Text says, Dave, $140 million plus would go a long way towards repaying the $800 million the legislature has siphoned or stolen from West Virginia State University over the past several decades. The university deserves better. The legislature is in the wrong. They don't. Okay, I don't really know what that has to do with it.
I saw a headline about that the other day, but I don't have any idea what it's about.
All right. Okay, we answered that one. Dave, for once, Thomas actually made sense.
Oh, well.
There you go.
Look at that, buddy. Even a blind squirrel, man.
Yeah, don't get that debate started because Hoppy did that a couple of weeks ago and what the exact phrase is. Let me ask you this before we go to break. How much of an issue, now I know you said you're not taking sides in the gubernatorial race, but do you see a Chris Miller, Moore Capito, Mac Warner, do you see any of the other leading Republicans using this in a campaign? Is this something that they would consider using? If you were, you said you're not working for him, but if you were, is this something that you may use against Morrissey in the campaign?
I would, but I'm an attack dog, man. I use everything. So
That's true. As Hoppy said, you'd run over your mother if you thought you could get a vote. That's what Hoppy said about you.
I would. Here's what I think. I would. I think this is a little down in the weeds, and you'd have to spend some time thinking about it. I think when it would become clear cut is if the law firms receiving the money all of a sudden are giving campaign contributions to Patrick Morrissey. Like, that's where, you know what I mean? Like, I think this is policy. This is how do we do this? This is, you could go to saying like, well, he should have handled it better. You could do that politically, and maybe you can make some ground up on it. I think that it's a political no-brainer is if you see all these, and we have all the names, right? So I think if you would get all the names of all the law firms and then go back and look at the next couple campaign finance reports and look at some of his outside independent expenditure groups like that Black Bear PAC and others and say, if you start seeing the same names of the lawyers that got the money that are giving money back in campaign contributions, that's probably the political opportunity that the campaigns would have, I think.
All right. Phone calls to 580 Live are a service of Big League Piggly Wiggly. Texting service provided by Fruth Pharmacy, your hometown family pharmacy. More with Greg Thomas after this from the Par-Mar Store Studio. 580 Live brought to you by the Thornhill Auto Group and the Voice of Charleston, WCHS.
Brought to you by the Eric J. Tarr Family Businesses. Eric J. Tarr Family Businesses care for your family.
Get ready to fall into savings this week at Family Dollar. Stay ahead of the mess and save on things like Swiffer refills, Gain laundry products, Bounty paper towels, and more when you clip your smart coupons. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
We are professional grade. Hey, it's Sydney inviting you to enjoy more with Thornhill GM Superstore, and GMC is leading the way. Whether it's the rugged GMC Sierra pickup or the versatile GMC Acadia, Thornhill has a perfect GMC for you. Powerful, reliable, and comfortable truck? Then don't miss this opportunity to get the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can enjoy 0.9% APR financing plus $32.50 purchase allowance with an eligible trade. And that's not all. Take advantage of no monthly payments until 2024. Click or come by ThornhillGMSuperstore.com. We are professional grade. Get more on the Thornhill Motor Mile, US 119 Chapmanville. For all offers through financial see Thornhill for all details.
Unsure you're ready for retirement? That's understandable. After all, you only retire once. Make the smart choice and call 4th Avenue Financial. If it deals with retirement planning, you can be confident they have the experience you need. Retire right with 4th Avenue Financial. Go to 4thavenuefinancial.com or call 304-746-7977 to book your free introductory meeting today.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Incorporated, JW Cole Financial, JW Cole Advisors, and 4th Avenue Financial are unaffiliated entities.
Tune into the morning news on 580 WCHS for What's Up with WVU Sports. Catch the Gold and Blue Report for daily insights into your favorite Mountaineers. From game highlights to exclusive interviews, get your WVU Sports fix every morning on 580 WCHS.
5 minutes away from 10, Greg Thomas is here. Text says, is it possible that this law firm, Motley Rice law firm, is great at their job? Does Greg think we should base every aspect of our daily life on our own political persuasions? Sounds like Motley Rice did their job. Newsflash, lawyers are expensive.
I do think Motley Rice did their job. And I think that throughout this, I haven't said that. What I don't think is they did $50 million worth of a job, right? And like whatever, like, and not only that, but this is a copycat lawsuit that they're doing in other places, right? Like, so how many times do they need to be paid $50 million for the same idea? Mm-hmm. Right. And so do I think they deserve to be paid? Absolutely. Do I think they did a good job? Absolutely. You've got they're the lead counsel on this big federal thing. they're going to get a whole lot more than $50 million out of that too, right? So it's not. I understand it is expensive. I understand they deserve to get paid. I understand and admit that they did a good job. But if you want to go out there I think that if you took the average person, not the average person, if you took anybody and we grabbed 100 people and we brought 100 people off the street into this 2 p.m. October 13th in the ceremonial courtroom of the Kanawha County Courthouse and had them sit there and listen to the lawyers say, I deserve $141 million, I don't think you could find one of the 100 people that would defend it. I just don't. It's $141 million. I don't know what the number is, but I know what it isn't. And it's $141 million.
Let me ask you, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a moment. Mm-hmm. You're a capitalist. I'm the ultimate capitalist. I say that all the time on the show. Why should you put a cap on things? What's the whole basic? Because it's public money. If this was it goes back to, Dave, I think it's a good question. It goes back to the fact that this is a public nuisance lawsuit. Okay.
This isn't private. This isn't a private thing. Like, this isn't like, if this were purely capitalist and it was a private lawsuit that's, based on plaintiffs against a defendant and then they got to negotiate it, but the attorney general is negotiating on behalf of
the state. I get the state.
Yeah, I get you. That's what this is about. That's why we're here. If this is, hey, if it had been a private thing, whatever, probably complain about it. But the reason that we're so intent on this and the reason that I'm not going to let up until 2 p.m. on October 13th at the ceremonial courtroom.
Can you hit that one more time?
It's important. It's important to know that there's a deadline on this. Whether you're a politician listening or an elected official or whoever, there is a deadline. We have a couple of weeks to try to do something to get these resources into people that need the resources.
Text says the dollar amount is as ridiculous as paying $1 million to someone who spilled hot coffee on themselves.
It's the same kind of thing, but even that, right? That's McDonald's. That's not the taxpayer.
Yeah,
this is the taxpayer. This is our money. This is a public nuisance lawsuit. If that's what it's supposed to be for, and we're going to continue to file these, we need to make sure that there are not huge financial windfalls for out-of-state personal injury law firms.
Text says, listening to these texts sounds like the AG's office workers are busy texting.
Well, they don't.
I don't. But for the record, I've said before, I have no idea who's sending these texts. I mean, I just get a text on the screen. So
yeah, it's and I think that, right? I mean, I've talked to 100 people about this, and 100 out of 100 thinks it's outrageous, and I guarantee you that 100 out of 100 listeners that aren't working for the Attorney General's office or a personal injury law firm getting money from this think the same thing.
All right. Greg Thomas, I appreciate you being here. Coming up on the show tomorrow, guest host will be Speedy Bevins. Chris Lawrence will be here to talk high school football. Hannah Gardner with our Adopt Me Please Pet of the Week on the show tomorrow. Evan Osborne from the Capital Market and Rick Cavender from Charleston Main Street. So we're loaded up for Friday Funhouse tomorrow. Greg, thank you so much. I have a feeling we're going to be talking to you and others on this for a long time. Until what date again?
October 13th.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
All right. Hobby's coming up next. I will see you tomorrow. Till then, have fun and love somebody.
WCHS AM, W243DRFM Charleston, and W283AQ Cross Lanes, a WVRC media station. We're proud to live here too.